It's TW Sports Talk here. We're coming off of the awarding the Stanley Cup Championship of 2013 to the Chicago Blackhawks. Um, 6-game series. It was definitely a good series. Um, you had some competitive hockey action here, and it was definitely every game was pretty fun to watch here. Um, multiple overtime games and, down to the wire games. Great stuff here with the NHL this year. And it's good because we almost had to think we almost didn't have any of this season at all. We had a shortened season, but, at least we had a season. And of course, here in Philadelphia, the Flyers, unfortunately, we didn't have playoffs. But even so, I mean, we had an interesting Stanley Cup playoff, um, you know, past couple months as we normally do, and definitely good ending with that series, ending with the Chicago Blackhawks last night, winning the cup in Boston, um, away from home, but you know, nevertheless, we sit here now. Most recently, the Flyers have. It appears that they're earlier today there was a statement released that the Flyers are going to part ways with Ilya Bryzgalov, and some the way I think about it, a lot of people are probably pretty happy about that, um, and I mean I can't say I don't blame I don't blame people for I don't blame them for parting ways with Bryzgalov, and I don't I don't blame the people for not being too fond of Bryzgalov. I mean, the guy is, I mean, he's admitted he doesn't like playing in Philadelphia. Kind of tongue in cheek. Nevertheless, he doesn't really like playing here, and I mean, part of it is justified because the Flyers did not have a very good defense this year. That's for sure. Um, and I mean, when you're missing Chris Pronger on defense this past year, we were expecting him back. Unfortunately, he didn't return this year. This season. Definitely that hurt the defense. But aside from him alone, we just did not have depth on, especially in the defense, with this roster this past season, and it definitely hurt the play. I'm sure it eroded Bryzgalov's confidence in his team at times, and I mean, here we sat with a definite setback of a season, albeit a shorter one, but we didn't make the playoffs, and we're sitting here, looking forward to next season and hopefully some an improved defense. First of all, that's the main, obviously an improved defense, and hopefully we find, hopefully our goaltender situation can be improved, as we've been having some trouble, improving that in recent years. And of course, not long ago we had Bobrovsky, and that things didn't work out there. And now, of course, he's I believe he won the Vezina Trophy this year. So um, it's funny how things like that happen sometimes. Like the guys that went to the L.A. Kings, in recent years, and of course last year they were the Stanley Cup champions. Um, so those things happen, but we can't worry about those things. We have to worry about improving this defense essentially, and of course rectifying the goaltending situation. Now, a step towards improving the defense that the Flyers have made, is recently, last week, they agreed to a 4-year deal with Mark Streit, a veteran defenseman who was actually the captain of the New York Islanders. Um, Now he's 35 years old, turning 36 in December. Um, 4-year, $20 million contract. Uh, Now, people suggest that he's not an old 35. He's a he's not too bad, over the hill for being up there in age. Um, Furthermore, he was pretty impressive actually in the series that they had against the Penguins in I believe the first round of the playoffs this past this year. Um, he okay he where's the he had 3 goals in the 6-2 series. Um, he had 5 points in just those 6 games against the Penguins. And that's for a defenseman here. 35. I mean, that's pretty impressive. Um, he's 288 points in 491 career games. He's coming off of a solid season, which he had 6 goals, and 27 points. 6 goals, 21 assists, leading the Islanders defenseman in what was a 48 game season. For defense, I mean that's not bad. I mean this guy was a team leader on the Islanders, and I mean it's interesting. I mean he played he played much of his career actually in Switzerland, his native Switzerland. Um, and he didn't even break into the NHL until 2005 to 2006 with the Montreal Canadiens. And then he joined the Islanders as a free agent in 2008. So, yeah, I mean he's a former All Star here in the league, and a pretty decent defenseman. Um, Now, is he a Chris Pronger? I mean, you know, in some ways, at this point of his career, I mean, I think he's an effective replacement to Chris Pronger. I mean, albeit, you know, it's not like he's replacing Chris Pronger itself, but I think he should be decent to bolster up the defense here on the Philadelphia Flyers for the upcoming season. Maybe get a little more veteran leadership in that area to help. But it's not just things aren't just going to revolve around things aren't just going to depend on Mark Streit on the Flyers defense. Um, it's also going to depend on the other guys. There's players like Zach Ronaldo that many Flyer fans, have lauded because he has this tough, grinded out mentality. He's always looking for a guy to hit. Um, I believe he led the league in hits this year, which I mean, I guess in the long run, I mean that stat doesn't really matter if you have the leading hitter on your team. Um, I mean that's great. I mean, perhaps he created you know you know more YouTube moments, I guess. If you wanna call it that, but at the end of the day, I mean, just because you have the lead hitter on your team does not mean that you have a great defense, and that showed this year. See, the thing is, this is coming from a former hockey player, um, back in my adolescent days. Um, when you set out, when your mindset is triggered in your brain that you're looking to hit somebody, you're just looking who can you blast into the boards, who can you knock down. When your mindset is that, you're taking your mindset off of, it depends. It tends to distract your mind from what is more important, and that is where is the puck and where is it going. If I bump him off the puck, if I bump it, where's the puck gonna go? Um, the guy you want to hit, if he's bracing himself, and teams probably have figured this out with the Flyers. That guys like Ronaldo, they love to hit. Um, Sometimes when you focus on just knocking a guy down rather than stealing the puck with your stick, poke checking or whatever, guys sometimes figure that out, and they oftentimes quick try to get rid of the puck before because they know they're going to take a hit. Um, or they want to direct the puck, in a place that, you know, if the guy goes to hit you, he's not. Then he's not really going to be able to get the puck or something like, or you could you could a guy could have the puck, he could get hit, and then the puck's just going to keep, skidding down the ice away from the guy who's, like Ronaldo, who's laying the hit anyways. So the point I'm making here is, I think coaching is definitely going to come into play on this defense. Um, and, I think, between Peter Laviolette and other guys on the coaching staff, they're going to have to, I think to make this defense more effective, they're going to have to, get them to do more poke checks and, to put the puck in the right place. Because the thing is, I mean, Ronaldo or whoever else, they can lay a guy out all they want. That's great. They can plant his face into the boards and,
Oh
you
my
know,
God!
whatever, break his nose and knock him cold to the ice. But guess what? If that causes the puck then to go to the, you know the opposing team's center, and then all of a sudden he's got an open lane and an open shot and he puts it in the goal, then, you know congratulations. The other team just scored a goal, and it was because the focus was taken off the puck. I mean, it can't just always be about blasting guys. You know, sometimes obviously there's times for a big hit. Sometimes they're more incidental. I mean, you look at guys like in the past, like Scott Stevens, who's often considered perhaps the biggest hitter in the history of the game. Sometimes he just like things out of the blue. He wasn't looking to always, hit somebody. He wasn't looking to, all right, I'm gonna skate, um, you know, I'm gonna skate 50 yards down the ice, and I'm gonna try to blast this guy or whatever. He just he'd react, and he nailed guys when he needed to. But, the best defenders in the league are going to be thinking, where's the puck gonna go, because that's what's important. If you're gonna blast somebody and forget about where the puck's gonna go and forget the fact that it might just skid, or get passed to, the opposing team, the opposing team's right wing, or whoever might be open, for a good shot. You got to think about that. And I think between the coaching and the Flyers in general, they got to think about that as they, hopefully will improve this defense coming into the 2013-2014 season, which, will thankfully now be a full NHL season, um, which will hopefully give the Flyers, a better shot this year. Hopefully they put things together well. Um, Offense. I mean, they got Claude Giroux, obviously. They got Jake Voracek. Jake Voracek's a nice rising star, who scored, just as many points as Claude Giroux this season. He's rising. He's a rising star. Wayne Simmons. You know, Scott Hartnell's. He's getting up there in age, but, you know, he's still a help to the team. And, of course, the Flyers parted ways with Danny Briere recently. Understandably, I mean, he's also gotten rather up there in age, and I think this season it showed. So, they show promise on offense. They definitely have some guys, on offense. It's going to be about, finding that goaltender, obviously, that they can trust in, and, hopefully, fixing the defensive issues that they had this past season, hopefully improving upon them. And again, I think, it's not just the players, maybe the lack of talent that they may have had on defense. It's not just that, but because Mark Streit, obviously, it's going to help. That's going to help, I think, in the talent department a little bit. But it's also going to come down to how they play mentally on defense. So, hopefully that is addressed here in the off season now, as we now come off, another's, wrapping up of the Stanley Cup Finals, with the Chicago Blackhawks, once again becoming Stanley Cup champions, for the second time in the past, four seasons. So, yeah, and hopefully maybe we'll be next year we'll be talking about the Flyers in the playoffs, maybe doing something. Um, at least this is a season. Peter Laviolette, if they don't make the playoffs this year, he could be shown the door. So, it'll definitely be it's an important season here. Hopefully, we'll see the Flyers, make the playoffs this year. Should definitely expect that out of them. Um, and hopefully they can do something in the playoffs. But until then, for the 10 months until we get to that point of the season, it's beginning now. The off season, the Flyers putting together, what will hopefully be a good 2013-2014 season that shows some promise. So with that in mind, thanks for tuning in this edition of TW Sports Talk, and continue to stay tuned for the latest on this channel as always.